Being a university student who works a full-time job, balancing academic, professional, and personal commitments can often feel stressful and overwhelming. This has been the case for me personally since commencing my degree and is something I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I believe that researching deeper into the topic of stress management will give me a better understanding of what stress actually is and how I can best deal with it in my daily routines. I chose this topic for my inquiry because I want to discover ways in which I can manage my own stress and not feel so negatively about the things that are out of my control. The purpose of my inquiry is to gain a stronger understanding of what stress actually is and research how it impacts the mental well-being of people around the globe. My inquiry will have a specific focus on young adults and university students. The objective of this research is to find positive and practical strategies that people have found that are effective in managing stress and how that can impact and support emotional and mental well-being. To begin my journey into inquiring further about mental well-being and stress management, I began with looking into the Western perspectives. As to be expected with any Western perspective, stress management was approached from a very scientific viewpoint. From the Western perspective, stress is a natural phenomenon that has many definitions. The World Health Organization defines stress as a state of worry or mental tension caused by difficult situations, whereas the American Psychological Association expands on these ideas, stating that stress involves changes affecting every system of the body, influencing how people behave and feel. It is a normal reaction to everyday demanding situations that can become unhealthy when it upsets daily lively functions. These variations in definitions arise from the fact that stress is a topic of interest across the sciences, with fields such as social, biological, physiological, and environmental sciences all researching the causes, effects, and management strategies of this psychological phenomenon. Whilst these definitions share a similar core concept of stress being a normal factor of life, I found an article that challenged my thinking and preconceived notions of stress that stated, at low levels, stress may be considered beneficial if it increases motivation and excitement, but extended periods of high stress represent chronic stress. The notion that stress can be viewed as beneficial allowed me to come to the realization that understanding that if managed effectively, stress can be used as a tool and is something not to be fearful of. Similarly to how Western sciences differ when attempting to define stress, there is also some disconnect in continuity through research into stress management. Western science divides stress into smaller subcontexts or types, including acute stress, episodic stress, and chronic stress. Whilst the type of stress an individual is experiencing determines the methods that should be taken to manage it, there are similarly areas of management that transcend each sub-area of stress. Due to the ever-increasing presence of technology in Western culture, most university students and young adults both access and use generative AI regularly. Because of this factor, for my inquiry into the Western ways of knowing, I asked ChatGPT what is the most effective stress management techniques for university students, specifically asking for strategies used in Western countries such as Australia, England, and the United States. Whilst each prompt generated a variety of techniques, some with unique management techniques, most of the answers were the same for each country. The answers given included limit unhealthy coping habits, improve time management, and increase amount of physical exercise. These management strategies include mindfulness practices such as meditation and controlled breathing. Psychological therapy has also been found to be an effective management tool, which can be carried out by talking to a professional, or for some people, even talking to a friend or family member can help. Physical exercise can also be used to manage stress, as it has been found to change brain activity through controlling cortisol, which is a hormone that triggers the body's fight or flight response. All of the above strategies help control the brain's response to the influx of cortisol and restore balance to the brain, mitigating the negative impacts it can have on emotional and physical well-being. Beginning my journey into inquiring about stress management through looking at it from the Western perspective provided me with a foundational understanding of what stress actually is and how it can affect the physical and emotional status of an individual. Knowing the difference in types of stress can help in implementing effective management techniques to prevent prolonged negative mental and physical effects. My journey into inquiring further about mental well-being regarding stress management continues by considering the Aboriginal ways of knowing, being, and doing. Similarly to the Indigenous perspective on physical health, the ways in which they respond and manage to stress is holistic in its nature and has a deep dependence on country and community. The Aboriginal ways of knowing and doing regarding the management of stress and emotional well-being takes the strength-based approach and revolves around the core concept that an individual cannot achieve positive mental health outcomes without positive connections with their country, their identity, and the broader community. But what does this actually look like in practice? Connecting to country can mean different things to different people. For the Indigenous people of Australia, country is viewed as a symbolic and spiritual place that has significant, deep, and interpersonal meaning to individuals, allowing them to reinforce their identities and connect to their past. Connecting to country can look different for many different Aboriginal Australians. For some, it is as simple as spending time on country. For others, connecting to country comes from caring for country through cleaning and tending to nature. This is often done as a way of expressing the interrelationship between caring for country and caring for self. One way which Indigenous people connect to country that deepened my personal understanding of the importance that land plays within their culture was birthing on country and then finishing up or being buried on country. The idea that we all come from the land and therefore all must return to the land deeply challenged my own personal perspective on what connecting to country actually means. The Indigenous people view country as a part of who they are and therefore treat it with genuine care and respect. In my research, I found a quote from Miriam Rose Ungamere-Borman, who is an Aboriginal activist and educator, which says, "We are river people. We cannot hurry the river. We have to move with its current and understand its ways." This quote beautifully embodies the Indigenous perspective on stress and how, like the river, we must live harmoniously with it and not fight against it. Learning from country as teacher has had a beneficial impact on my own personal, emotional well-being, as it has allowed me to explore health from the two-way perspective. I have since spent more time intentionally observing country, specifically going on walks through the botanical gardens, the Minamara rainforest, and along the Gerringong coast. I have found when spending time slowing down and connecting to country, my mind has been put at ease, and upon reflection in these moments, I find myself temporarily forgetting about the stresses of day-to-day life. I have also found myself being more grateful to be surrounded by such a beautiful landscape and environment, in particular, living along the coast that is home to an abundance of wildlife. Incorporating the two-way approach in this inquiry has allowed me to see how stress can be managed from both Western and Indigenous ways of knowing. Stress is experienced differently by everyone, and managing it is unique to everyone. However, there are many similarities that transcend both these cultures that can assist in providing effective management strategies for all. Both perspectives use stress management strategies that involve seeking help from others and slowing down through ways of meditation. Both ways of knowing also view stress as natural and something that is ever present. This can be seen in Miriam Rose Ungamere-Borman's quote used earlier, which is similar in its perspective to Antonovsky's model of health, which uses the idea that life is like a river with many bends and currents, and our well-being is determined on how we navigate and manage that river. At their core, each culture's way of knowing regarding stress greatly differ. For the West, stress is seen as a biological response to hormonal and chemical imbalances in the brain, and therefore is something that should be treated. Each management techniques that the West use is scientifically backed and has proven to be effective for certain people. The Indigenous way differs greatly from this, as their approach is holistic in nature and requires a sense of spirituality and connectedness. One of my key takeaways from viewing these differences is that the West deals with stress using individual and internal strategies, whereas the Indigenous way of knowing prioritize their connections with what is around them to heal and grow. I believe it is essential, especially for young adults and university students, to find a sense of belonging and connectiveness to both the land and the people around them. This feeling of belonging allows for an effective way to mitigate stress and heal from the negative implications it can have on their emotional well-being. Taking the time and opportunity to map out the ways in which both cultures view and manage stress helped me in my understanding of this topic and provided me with the opportunity to view stress from a variety of perspectives. For university students and young adults, I believe it is important to experiment with a variety of stress management strategies and share with others what is effective in order to help not only their own personal well-being journeys, but assist support those around them. This inquiry into stress management has been useful in expanding my own personal understanding and includes different ways of knowing that will be useful in my future career as a health educator. Indigenous holistic approach to mental well-being taught me that not everything needs to have a scientific basis in order to be true or effective. Connecting spiritually to both self and country can be healing and isn't something to discredit or rush over when teaching students about health. The strength-based approach to health, as well as a mental and emotional well-being, is also one of major importance and is something the Indigenous people do very well. It is an approach that focuses on personal ability and access and understanding, which is essential for both learning from country and teaching students about their own health and well-being. My final takeaway from this inquiry is that not everything needs to come from a book when connecting and teaching about health. There is a lot country can teach us about ourselves and the world we live in.